Everyone, welcome Forking Awesome Giulio.
Forking awesome. Forking awesome. Forking awesome. That is forking awesome. This is forking awesome. That's forking awesome. Forking awesome. Forking awesome.
So Giulio, now you're a founder. You are a successful founder. You're a venture builder. You're an investor, right? And everything is cool. But as we know, the founder's story, right? The founder's journey is it's not always that. It's I would say it's mostly challenges and that you have to overcome. So if you look back into your past, like what biggest struggles, personally and as a business, you had to overcome and that you would like to share with us?
That's a very, very interesting question, and thank you for deep diving on me as well and some of the struggles. I think we all kind of get to know founders when they are successful, not when they're unsuccessful. So if I had to go back, hardest periods. So I think so before being a founder in gaming and Web3, I was a founder in Web2 and the sector of e-commerce in particular. I would identify two particularly hard periods during that journey. One, frankly speaking, was 2012. Now, in 2012, I had less than 2 years of real work experience and decided to be a founder. And I decided to be a founder in a country and environments that I didn't know, because I thought I could bring learnings and business models from countries that I knew. So I moved to Southeast Asia and started building. While looking back, at that age, I think I was 24 years old, you take risk very easily, but the struggle was real because getting traction on a business model like e-commerce that is very funding heavy at that age is actually hard. The number of doors that close in your face is high. Number of people that I would say laugh nearly at you is high. I wasn't alone. That's why you have co-founders. But that period was hard mainly because we were kind of nearly at one point wondering if we were doing this as a joke, because you had started getting to the point where most people didn't think you could build a new e-commerce in the era of Amazon already being 100 billion company, etc., etc. That was number one. I think second hard period, number two, was 2016, 2017. It's kind of the pendulum swings to the other side. We had hit a valuation of 3.6 billion in our last funding round, and then we didn't handle it too well. Meaning we didn't handle that money in the best of ways. We pushed really hard on the accelerator. Meanwhile, the markets turned. Some things didn't work out, and we started running out of cash. Long story short, we had to do what is called a down round. So we had to slash our valuation by more than, I think, 80%. We had to face investors with that discussion. And the only reason we raised, aside from slashing, was also committing to big redundancy rounds in our personnel. Until then, we had only let go people when they were non-performing. This was the first time as founders that we had to let go people that joined us on a dream journey as a top-down decision. So it ended up with, I think we had to let go 400 or 500 people in that period. It was a very difficult period. That's the fundraising, admitting to ourselves that this was the only way we would fundraise.
Do you remember that day, Giulio? Do you remember that day when you had to let go?
So I remember the day when I had to let go of the people.
How did you
I remember
deal with that
the
emotionally?
It was so. This is going to sound very bad, but the actual announcement was relieving, because the reality is you become aware of the hardness of this decision the moment you sign off on the term sheet you're getting for the down round, and then you spend close to a month working out the details, who's impacted, who's not, and dreading the announcement. And the moment the words leave your mouth, you're kind of a big weight is lifted. The truth is that though the weight comes back bearing 10x on you when you then go in one-on-one conversations with some of the most impacted employees after making the announcement. In my case, I decided to personally speak to at least 60 people. It wasn't possible just logistically to do all the 400. I remember actually also attending a goodbye dinner. I thought I shouldn't have gone, but then the actual employees being let go insisted that I do, and I be present there. And it wasn't to murder me. It was actually just to tell me that, you know, it was okay, and they didn't think it was our fault. But yeah, no, I remember all this period with quite some vividness. And I did have, you know, as a founder, you need to keep a certain facade and behavior. Usually, founders tend to, at least I think founders that manage to push through tend to display stress in a psychosomatic way because they actually have to internalize it. You don't have that much of a choice, no. So the period also affected, for a long period of time, it affected my my metabolism, my digestive system, and series of things. But look, I mean, the journey ended up being a successful journey, but it wasn't a linearly successful journey.
I highly appreciate you sharing with me that, and with us that, because it's not that something entrepreneurs, you know, are willing to share. It's because I mean, we love sharing successes, right? Because that's what we are working for. But sharing your downfalls is much harder. What was that company that you're talking to? 3.5 billion valuation. What was that company about?
So it was a lifestyle e-commerce, so mainly focused on beauty, fashion, and sports. The group ended up being called Global Fashion Group, but the brands under it, the consumer brands, had different names across the world. We were Zalora in Southeast Asia. We were The Iconic in Australia. We were Namshi in the Middle East. We were Dafici in LATAM, and until just after the Ukraine war, we were La Moda in the CIS market.
Fucking awesome. Yo. Wow.
So console or PC?
PC.
Dragons or robots?
Dragons.
Multiplayer or single player?
Recently single player. I think multiplayer requires a lot more time than I have.
Fire powers or ice powers?
Fire powers.
Time travel or teleportation?
Time travel.
Why?
I think you can make more money with time travel.
That's save the world or have a chance to explore the whole universe. I mean, save our world, save the planet, the Earth.
Save our world.
Thank you.
I'm a father. That's a very easy question.
Oh, of course. Okay. Yeah. Do you remember the day when LiquidX, which is now Mon, was created?
To be actually transparent, no, because it was the product. It was the product of a conversation, and it was a product of brainstorming between friends that ended up escalating into becoming a company. And the company name was actually decided after already putting in place a lot more pillars. Initially, what you do is you just go there and register an entity, and literally you just can pick any name. It doesn't matter. But the consumer-facing name was actually something we decided a little bit later after in incorporating the entity and deciding that we wanted to operate at the intersection of gaming, NFTs, IPs.
Okay, and who invented the name LiquidX? And then it was Mon, right? Who did that?
So it was that part I remember. It was a brainstorming conversation with a few people on a chat app. I don't remember if it was Telegram or Discord. There were us two co-founders, and I think there was a person called Hunter Soler who was part of the original Pixelmon team and is one of the great analysts still hanging around the gaming space. And I think at some point Liquid came up, and I think I added the X. And LiquidX came up. It then became Monco, and the Monco instead rebranding was a lot more studied. So there were CMOs involved and PPTs and whatnot.
Yeah, Monco, of course, it's easier to remember and everything. Of course, every marketer will love it. But I personally love LiquidX. I don't know why, but of course, Monco is kind of easier and better to market. It's 100%.
Yeah.
So you're coming from fashion, from e-commerce and everything. So why gaming, Giulio?
So a few reasons. When I went into lifestyle e-commerce, it was because e-commerce was actually really innovating in the early 2010s. And particularly in developing markets, we were really innovating. So the first big apps in the app stores, aside from hyper-casual games, were actually e-commerce apps. We were innovating on the supply chain front. We were innovating on the delivery front. I actually wasn't that interested in the product, so fashion itself. I was interested in the innovating curve and the high level of complexity of the business, inventory, multi-country, tech, and physical. And as I left it, I told myself that I wanted to go into something that had that aspect, but in the 2020s. So being at the forefront of innovation, but something that also at a product level, I felt excited by. I was a gamer. I've always been a gamer. You know, less and less as you have kids, the time is less, but you still gravitate towards it in your spare time. And gaming seemed an obvious answer. And blockchain was really what was at the forefront of that innovation. It was already becoming clear, I think, in 2022 that or 2021 that AI would start having large-scale applications in gaming. Of course, we couldn't see behind the curve of what ChatGPT would become within a year and a half from there, but I actually was surprised, but we started picking up on the signals a year and a half ago, how that AI intersection also hits blockchain in a great way. So yeah, I'm very actually happy of the choice we made.
Yeah, I just watched before our interview, I guess yesterday or a few days ago, I watched the Pixelmon trailer, you know, and all this fire, dragons, eyes, all these things, and it's really an epic trailer. So of course, innovation and everything, you mentioned blockchain, but as a, you know, we all man are kids. You know, at some point, we all love gaming. We all love, you know, playing stuff. Is it something that amazes you too? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's because you're creating something that people would get emotions from. It's just not. It's not just an app that will make your life simpler or whatever. It actually doesn't at some point, right? It just makes your life more entertaining, exciting, and is it also that, you know, drives you all this fancy stuff?
So this came up. I actually realized the power of this a bit later. The power of myself of this a bit later. Meaning, when we started very pragmatic. So gaming, yes. Blockchain, yes. It took me a moment to realize how big and exciting of a fantasy IP we could build. And it actually started becoming one of my main motivation drivers. Because I think to focus on Pixelmon itself. Because to be frank, I think the investing activity and venture studio activity, let's be honest, it's less work, and it actually can drive quite a large size result. But the focus that we started taking towards anime and IP building, yeah, actually comes from the fact that we are me and my co-founders have passions in the space. I personally have always been a fantasy reader. I read the first Game of Thrones book 12 months after it was published in 1998, and when I was 10 years old. And I still read. So the only way, if I'm stressed, my calm down therapy before bed is fantasy books. So I keep my Kindle on. Usually I have a biography or white collar crime reporting, and I have a fantasy book. And depending on if I need to calm down, I'll read fantasy still today. We all watch anime. we all imagined being Ash Ketchum or being able to capture Pokemons when we were younger. So that aspect of the IP is actually, I'd say, the motivation driver these days, versus instead, and the thing that keeps us away from just getting distracted buying coins in trading AI agents or meme coins. That's why we stay focused.
Working awesome. Yo.
For Pixelmon, right? And for Mon, how does it currently make money? And does it make money currently? I mean, it's all about the Web3 gaming right now, right? So many games are kind of they are launched, so now everyone is waiting for what's next. So I guess that's more like
Yeah.
yeah.
So all of our games are built as free-to-play microtransaction driven games. The flagship is Warden's Ascent, which is a turn-based RPG. You can think of it, think of Seven Deadly Sins Grand Cross from Marble X or Marvel Contest of Champions. These are kind of games it inspires from. And then there's a trading card digital game that is interoperable with it. Our revenue model is to make money from primary transactions in game and money from the royalties coming from player-to-player trading, which interoperativity is supposed to also generate. That's the business model by which Mon is sunk. We want Mon to be sunk at scale, and from which we can take the cut to run the business and make the business grow. So we can take enough to reinvest into performance marketing and development, keep growing, and keep growing that Mon market cap as a consequence. That's a primary driver. Meanwhile, we had the opportunity to launch the launch pools model. This doesn't make money for the organization, but it does earn airdrops for Mon holders. I call it a little bit of a, it ended up being quite a large operation. So there's 21 launch pools to date, I think, and 100 partners signed. But for us, it was always thought as, this is a great way to give utility while we finish making these games. Games can be extremely profitable. To give an idea, the top performing game in the Android store, which is Free Fire, is made by a Singaporean company called Garena, makes 20 million USD a day of revenue, of which 10 are pure EBITDA. And this is not a new launch that's hot. This is 7.5 years old. So, and then you can project, 20 million USD a day for 7.5 years. Of course, it's been accelerating, but it tells you also that these products, when gotten right, they have very high longevity. They're not like premium games. You drop it, it's very hot for a couple of months, Wukong or others, Forza, etc. No, these are games that keep monetizing, and actually, because of cohort models and performance marketing, they start monetizing more as the cohorts grow. On the other side of the spectrum, though, games are a risky business because only 5% breaks even of the games that are launched. And that's break even. So we're also, in that sense, aware that building an IP helps de-risk that, because building an IP, focusing on an anime at the same time, comic book, etc., allows us to be multifaceted and de-risk a little bit from a single game flop. It allows us to keep building even if the game isn't ultimately successful. But I personally think it will be, particularly Warden's Ascent.
And IP licensing and everything is also part of this strategy, as I understand, right? So of the long-term strategy, where you think that Pixelmon would be at the point where you would be working with brands and others will take your IP to launch their own games or their own collections or whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's already happening. So we've signed 2 licensing agreements within gaming. One was with Play Ember. The second one is with a Korean company called Codrop that's making a Pixelmon Idol RPG. For now, I see licensing has 2 sides to it. One is branding risk, because you're giving your brand to somebody else. But the other side is basically, you can call them nearly options for extra revenue at 0 cash flow or operational distraction. So I invest 0 money. I spend zero time other than signing the deal. Somebody else builds a great product, and then I take royalties. Of course, the risk is branding risk. So are they going to do a good job, or are they going to potentially lower the value of your brand by launching a bad product? That's the thing to be careful with. The other side of it is it allows you not to become a super complex company and keep staying focused on what you're good at. So we think we're going to be good at RPGs, mobile, because that's what we've been focusing on so far, and Web3 elements. We don't think we're going to be good at making T-shirts. We don't think we're going to be the best ones at making 3D plastic statues of our characters. We want this stuff to be licensed work. So that's the other side of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. One of the last questions on Mon and Pixelmon, right? So I know you've built something solid, right? And kudos to you. You've built a huge community, I guess one of the biggest in gaming and in Web3, right? And I see how it adores the stuff you do. I saw the feedback, look through the feedback of some influencers that attended your booth at Gamescom, and they were excited at what you've done and with the games that you've done. So kudos for that, right? But in crypto, we also have, besides the actual product, we have the token, right? Which NDTG was a few months ago, I guess, for Mon. And I mean, if we look at CoinMarketCap, the price dropped right now, right? And in crypto, I'm not that guy who is looking at the short-term drop price, right? A lot of like biggest companies like Facebook or others, they dropped after their, not DG, but after the launch on NASDAQ or whatever, right? But in crypto, people are looking for, quick profits, quick, like, and bringing that thought into the market. So how are you dealing with that? What's the plan on the token, and how do you deal with all that thought?
Yeah, look, thank you for bringing it up. It's an it's certainly the elephant in the room. So if we were to, I've been spending a lot of time taking a step back and thinking, why is the curve looking like that? And I think the summary of it, which is easy to say with 2020 kind of hindsight vision, but is we launched at the peak of that mini gaming bull. The funny part is if we had launched 3 months earlier, which was actually when our launch was originally scheduled until we started trying to get other exchanges, our curve would would have had a slope down like all the other gaming tokens, but it would have had at least somewhere to go up before going down. So I think the first one was just timing, and timing was unfortunate. The second factor to it, which is easier for builders to see now, is that essentially unlock schedule and percentage of float or market cap ratio to FTV, which we ended up kind of in the middle of this, straddling the period of super low float, high FTV, and fair launches or high float launches. And we ended up kind of straddled in the middle with this 15%. So super low float were like 3% float tokens. And we saw a lot of those. We ended up in this 15% range, which is neither good nor bad kind of range, but puts you in a situation where people still are fearing future inflation, clearly, but not flocking away from you fast enough to let the floor find. So I think in the last 2 months, we've sort of found our floor, but it took way too long to find that floor. And still today, there's a lot of fear of future inflation. If I could go back, probably with the meta of today, I'd have a launch that is a lot fairer. It's also easier, frankly, for founders on not having to deal with that much inflation ahead of them, pull the Band-Aid off. But it is what it is. The alternative to all that, and the other kind of side of the coin, would have been delay the launch by an entire year and a half, fully develop the product, the games, and go live only with the games. Now, that is an argument, though, that is also tough to make, because the reality is Pixelmon had a relatively a community that had been already waiting on NFTs for quite some time. So there was still need to kind of move to the next instrument. And at the same time, launch pool needs to be taken into consideration, and the launch pool wouldn't have worked without Mon in circulation and 100 airdrops might be worth being live for a year more. Now, if I take a step back from that, how do we deal with it? So I think we've got a few things going for us. Those are experienced founders and cash flow. So experienced founders, or at least I am able, and my co-founders, to abstract ourselves from the today and feel confident enough in our execution abilities to say this will come back. And it doesn't really affect our motivation deeply. Seeing a downward slope or some malcontent from the ranks. The cash flow also gives us certainty that we're going to keep building at this speed or faster for 4 to 5 years, because it is Pixelmon is a very, and Mon as a consequence, a very treasury rich company due to our history and just the way we've managed it. Now, the flip side though is, and I am transparent about this, is who is affected instead is internal morale of younger team members, wider team members. So it isn't to say that having a launch like that it's not something you can ignore because you know that you'll come back from it. We do have to think about our employees and the fact that some of them, particularly the ones of them that spend a lot of time within crypto Twitter or spend a lot of time within a typical in retail investor community in crypto, are probably going to feel this heavily. Even because at times it's going to just be used in a jabs kind of way and dibs to them from peers in the communities they're embedded in. And let's be honest, part of the reason we hired them is because they were embedded in those communities, because we need insiders to fully understand the space. So we have taken a bit of a hit from that. We have been working on the motivation of our employees. The truth be told is we haven't lost anyone because of it, but we have had to work on morale and work on bringing everybody on the same page, and we're going to come back. I think the truth is that what has helped the most internally was grab the entire company and sit them down in the actual dev meetings of the game teams and let them see the products, let them see what's behind the scenes. Because I also realized this, the gaming teams were the least affected. But instead, the tokenomics type teams and the community management teams and marketing teams are heavily affected.
Of course.
So if you took these guys and let them get close to the level of confidence that we're seeing in the gaming teams, you actually get a lot of positivity. While, funny enough, some of the gaming teams are there saying, oh, if nobody knows how good our product is, we should just buy more Mon token ourselves. And I was like, careful, those could be delicate topics.
The best mentality, I guess, right?
But yeah, that's the sum of it. It's needless to say, Giulio would change a lot of things if he could rewind time. But also Giulio's going to stick to the choices he's taken and just build ahead.
Fucking awesome. Yo. Wow.
One skill you wish you had, but you don't know.
Coding.
I bought my first Bitcoin in.
I bought my first Bitcoin in 2018.
I feel most proud of Mon
when I try out our games.
If I weren't building games, I'd be
a marine biologist. That was literally my alternative university path.
Oh, that's cool. If you had unlimited budget and resources, what's one crazy idea that you'd bring to life right now?
I'd be gunning straight for the MMO where every Pixelmon is an AI agent.
Your 3 favorite games of all time and why? Or 1 game, 2 games. Perfectly 3, but if it's 1, it's okay.
So Pokemon, GTA, Age of Empires. And they're very different games, and in fact, they actually populated very different periods of my life. With maybe Grand Theft Auto actually being present always through the different issues. Age of Empires and strategy games and just history was always a big thing. I think possibly it's actually one of the things that I spent the most hours on when I was computer playing. Pokemon, Pokemon did something that those two games didn't do, which was it actually captured my fantasy at a deeper level, because I was really imagining if this world were true and if we were in this world, and if I wasn't imagining myself being Ash, I was imagining myself being Giulio, but in the Pokemon world, which I think is what most of us did, to be honest, when we played that game. But yeah, Grand Theft Auto was my PlayStation game and my PlayStation years across different PlayStation. Age of Empires was my most played desktop game, probably. I head-to-head with something that I don't do much anymore, but I played. So my first time playing competitively, I'm going to give you a fourth one, was Unreal Tournament, which was the precursor of Fortnite by the Epic team.
I know this game.
I used to spend a lot of hours on the Unreal Tournament maps, and frankly, it was also the last first-person shooter that I actually spent real time on, or had the time to spend real time on.
I guess we're pretty same age, because I would name all of those games too. Maybe not Pokemon. I don't know. I tried it a bit, but I'm not a big fan. But all of the others, like Unreal Tournament and others, I enjoyed. Okay, 2 last questions. Your biggest axe on investments? Like, what was the biggest axe you made in crypto, non-crypto, whatever?
Axe means positive return.
Yeah. How many axe? You know how it's in crypto,
X,
they say 100x, 5x, 1x, whatever.
I am thinking, because I have a company that is my first angel investment was actually in my second angel investment was in a company from 2 employees of mine. That company is backed now by the Singapore Sovereign Fund and became a unicorn. But I came in literally at sub 1 million valuation, so it was 1,000x. Well, post dilution, so it was 1,000x pre dilution, because these are equity companies. So post dilution, probably 500-600x, but yeah, that kind of range.
500-600x or 1,000x. It's so huge. It
eradicated in me the belief of investing in people I know as builders versus kind of in trends or tokens. Yeah.
If you look back, would you do anything differently in your life? One thing you would pick up?
Look, I think the answer is no, because the truth is that if you ask me, would you change something you did, a micro decision you did a month ago? Yeah, I can pick many of those. The way we launched the Mon token, many of those. But the truth is, big decisions in life are, for me, things that brought me where I am today, my wife, my 2 kids. I wouldn't want to touch anything that could potentially alter the timeline and make them be different or not exist, because you're so proud of all of those things, and you don't want to change that timeline. So, yeah.
Thank you, Giulio. Thank you for this interview. It was a big pleasure.
Same here, Adi.
Attention, everybody. Giulio will give 3 Pixelmon NFTs worth of $1,000 combined to 3 best commentators in the comment section below. All you have to do is send a 3-4-liner of what you imagine the plot of the next Pixelmon anime series can be. Comment below and win amazing, unique Pixelmon NFTs. For more details, see the description of this video. Bye bye.